Let's start with the situation on the ground. Explain what is going on.
Yes, Chloe, this is the map that we're all getting very familiar with. The Russians want to take the whole of the Donbass. If they take Severodonetsk, they've more or less got Luhansk. That's the last city really in Luhansk. And they're close to doing that, but it will be a big issue really to take the rest of the second oblast of Donetsk. But we will see. We will see. But if we look a bit more closely at what's happening in the city of Severodonetsk, you can see that the problem for the Russians is that they are pushing forward. They were at the eastern edge of the city yesterday. Reports are that they're now half through the urban area now, and that's entirely plausible. It looks as if the Ukrainians may be having to pull back, and they may be coming onto the other side of the river to Lysychansk, which is sensible from their point of view. That's a more defensible place to try to hold the Russian offensive, or at least slow it down. There are apparently between 10 and 15,000 civilians still in Severodonetsk, and so this is turning into another Mariupol. Not quite on that scale, but the same process, I'm afraid.
And up in the north, what's going on in Kharkiv right now?
Well, different things are happening in the north and elsewhere. I mean, the Ukrainians in the north, they had a big push at Kharkiv a couple of weeks ago, and they succeeded in pushing Russian artillery away from the city, which means that the city is free from these dreadful artillery barrages, although not from missile strikes, I have to say. But Kharkiv is the second city. It's getting back to something like normal. And the Ukrainians are still trying to push the Russians back. Their own offensive has stalled a little bit, and the Russians are digging in. So I wouldn't expect those positions to change very much in the coming week or two. But the Ukrainians are certainly holding their own and keeping Kharkiv, as it were, more or less free at the moment.
And let's move down to the south and talk a bit about what's going on there, because that's a strategically important area as well.
Yeah, that's the next battle. After Severodonetsk, this is the next big battle. The Russians were trying to push southwards towards the coast as if they wanted to actually attack Mykolaiv from the south instead of from the east, which they tried to do before and failed. And that, of course, is the gateway to Odessa, still quite a long way away, but nevertheless, they've got to get past Mykolaiv before they can get to Odessa, which they certainly want to do. But the Ukrainians, while the Russians have been trying to do this, the Ukrainians have built up their forces. We could see this a couple of weeks ago. A battle was developing here, and it's now started. And the Ukrainians are pushing really very hard, and they seem to think that they could get as far as Kherson reasonably soon. Well, I'm not sure about that, but we will see. But the Ukrainians are more than holding their own here. They're giving the Russians something else to worry about, because if the Russians do lose Kherson, that's the most important city that they've captured so far. If they were to lose it, even for a short time, that would be a very big setback. And so we'll see how that battle goes. That's not reached its peak yet, I guess, but it certainly will do in the next week or two.